This is a map of, and the New York Times, for those who don't know, the New York Times is a neoliberal propaganda piece of shit, but that doesn't mean this map is incorrect. Every once in a while, you can see things that they don't really. I don't know. They'll publish and they'll try and justify, or for whatever reason. So here's the map. This is the change in control since January 1st. Blue is, and I know on the podcast you can't see this, but I'll describe it real quick. Blue is gained by Ukraine, and red is gained by Russia. And this is not, and I know some of you may be going, well, because they're showing so much land, it makes it look small, but that map shows all of Russia. No, it does not show all of Russia. This map only shows basically Ukraine, or a portion of Ukraine, because the light red on the map that looks like it might be Russia is actually just areas of Ukraine held by Russia. So this is all just Ukraine. And these tiny little, for those of you listening to the podcast, which is called Dangerous Ideas on Spotify, those tiny little blue specks, it's right. Oh, can you see the little blue? That is how much Ukraine has gained since January 1st. We're talking 10 fucking months, 10 cluster fucking months. And then the little pieces of red is areas gained by Russia since January 1st. And everything else on this entire map has stayed the same since this since the beginning of January 1st. Most of the changes in land mass being held by Russia or Ukraine happened within the first couple of months of this insane proxy war that the U.S. helped create. I'm opposed to the Russian invasion, but I'm also opposed to NATO expansion. I'm also opposed to this war, which actually began in 2014, thanks to a U.S.-backed coup in Ukraine. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Roberto. Someone is reminding me that I said it's called Dangerous Ideas on Spotify, the podcast. It's actually called The Leecamp Show on Spotify. The book is called Dangerous Ideas. If you want the ebook, it's available anywhere you can get ebooks, and it's called Dangerous Ideas. Sorry about that. The Leecamp Show. But yes, the graphic comes from the New York Times article, Who's Gaining Ground in Ukraine This Year? No one. And it just highlights this map showing that essentially nothing has changed, just highlights how insane this war is and how insane it is that the U.S. won't let this war end. And why am I putting that at that idea at the doorstep of the United States, that we won't let it end? Because there was a peace deal that was going to be signed in April of last year, basically a month after this thing started, was going to be signed, and the U.S. and U.K., Boris Johnson specifically, as an emissary of the Western countries, went running to Ukraine to make sure it was not signed. And he said, and he admitted this to Macron when he went to France afterwards, he said that if you were to sign this deal, this peace deal, the Western countries won't support you. Basically saying we will withdraw all military support, all military guarantees, all security guarantees. We will withdraw everything if you sign this peace deal. Basically forcing the hand of Ukraine to continue this battle and lose hundreds of thousands of lives. And that continues to this day. Basically, this goes on until the U.S. says they'll endorse an end to this, a ceasefire. But the U.S. so far is not doing that. We're just sending more and more weapons to this utterly insane, maniacal fucking war that puts us on the brink of nuclear annihilation. And you can see by this map that was published by neoliberal outlet New York Times that almost nothing has changed hands in this war since 2023 began. 10 months of killing and fighting and leaving cluster bombs that will ultimately blow up children and innocent civilians. All of that nothing's changed hands. Essentially, nothing has changed hands. And as I've covered before on this show, the mainstream media and our government knew that the counteroffensive would not amount to a hill of beans, as they say, to a hill of beans. They knew beforehand. The CIA knew. Pentagon leaks show that they knew this counteroffensive was almost definitely a desperate attempt, but would not change anything. And they lied about it the entire time. They continue to lie about it and act like it's having some kind of success. It's just, they're just throwing lives at nothing, at fucking nothing. And it's repulsive. And if you care at all about human life, doesn't matter whether it's a Ukrainian or a Russian or an American, if you care at all about human life, you should not want to see this. And you should want to see a peace deal, because that's how it's going to end ultimately. I don't know. I don't care whether it's fucking 5 years from now or next month or 10 years from now. It's going to end eventually with some sort of peace deal signed, right? Either that or nuclear Armageddon. But let's assume let's hope that's not the ending. So it's going to end with some sort of peace deal. Well, now you can see what's going to change in that fucking time. Nothing. Little tiny red dots and blue dots on this map. And again, this map is not dwarfing making these gains seem smaller by showing all of Russia or something. No, this is literally showing mostly the front lines in this map. And yet you just see little pricks of red and blue changes in ground. Just incredible. I mean, we've gotten 40% of America to wake up to this. 40% of America no longer supports what we're doing in Ukraine. But, it is amazing that it's still 60%. But of that 60%, probably 30 or 40 or half of that have really no idea what's going on. I support the thing in the Ukraine. And then the other half have been so indoctrinated by our dumpster fire propaganda, like the New York Times, that they believe this is some sort of wonderful thing we're doing.